We will now call the Fayette County School Corporation Board of School Trustees Business Meeting to order. We're here at the Administration Building. It is Tuesday, September 12th, 2017, and it is 6:30 p.m. And would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are going to begin tonight with an opportunity to listen to our school corporation guidance department, and we have a number of our guidance counselors here with us today, and I think they're going to share with us about their Gold Star status and the process, and so we're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Counselors believe in teamwork, so one for all. So yes, we wanted to thank you for inviting us tonight to talk to you a little bit about our services and our programs and the honors that we've recently received. But before we get started, I wanted to have everybody introduce themselves. So I'm Victoria Smichael, and I'm at the middle school.
I'm Julie Bell. I'm at the high school.
Jamie Ham at the high school.
Bethany Sinkhorn, Grandview and Fayette Central Counselor.
I'm Crystal Frank. I'm at the high school. And I'm Ashley Baker, the social worker at Grandview and Fayette Central.
And I'm Cindy Roberts, and I'm at the middle school.
So we wanted to tell you a little bit about our programming and what we've just gone through last semester. Many of you were part of our committees and our councils that we did to obtain our recognition and our Gold Star nominations. But one thing that we have focused on as school counselors, and while we were doing all of this and the grant, the Lilly grant that we applied for, is we follow the Ask a National model, which is one of the very few approved school counseling models out there. And just to tell you a little bit, they focus a lot on the database decision making, so we do a lot of gathering of data. It's comprehensive K-12, which means we offer services to every child throughout the schools. We try to make sure it's a rigorous education of the skills that they need to make good decisions. So then we applied for the Lilly grant, which, fingers crossed, we'll find out, I believe, this next month if we were awarded it or not. But in order to apply for that, we did redesigning school counseling process. It is very rigorous, as those of you that were on a committee know. There was a lot to be done. We did what would usually take a year. We did in a semester, gathering data, making decisions about what we felt was important for the kids to know to be successful, how we would go about doing that, what they needed to be taught to make those good decisions. So we use data for our achievement. We try to help with our academic achievement. So one of the things we focus on is our academic goals within the schools. We talk about what their choices they're making now as opposed to what we want them to make. And we set those goals, and then we decided on our activities. We decided what we were going to do for this following year to meet those goals. So each year we will now again gather data to see how close we are to meeting those goals and continue to make changes as needed to our activities and hopefully continue to make improvements. And then every 3 years we will try to renew the Gold Star, and the high school just did that process because they were the first of all of us to get the Gold Star 3 years ago. So, and then we were going to talk to you a little bit about what Gold Star means.
Okay. So by now you've all heard the term Gold Star, and you're probably wondering, okay, so what does Gold Star mean? Recently there was an article in the News Examiner about Gold Star, and so if those of you that have read it saw that 6 of the Fayette County schools received the Gold Star award. So those of us that worked on this process can tell you that it was a lot of hard work. We spent a lot of time this summer working on it. So just telling you that we spent a lot of time on it doesn't really tell you what it is still. So you're still maybe wondering what it is. So I could talk about the Ask a National model or talk about the all-encompassing school counseling plan, but it still wouldn't really tell you what Gold Star means. So really, at the end of the day, what Gold Star means is that the Fayette County School Corporation Counseling Department, we are always going to be striving to do the best for our students. So what it means is that we've taken the time to complete these surveys, to analyze the data from these surveys, to create advisory committees, to speak with community stakeholders, set goals, address gaps, complete improvement plans, all of the redesigning school counseling process. We've done all of that. And receiving the Gold Star Award means we've completed all that, but it doesn't mean that we have everything figured out and that there aren't changes that need to take place. Receiving the award means that now we know where these changes need to take place, and we're committed to making those changes to ensuring that our students have the best future possible. So it doesn't stop now that we've received the award. What that means now that we've received the award, we're going to be putting these improvement plans in place. They're going to become reality. And we're going to continue to complete surveys, review data, meet with our advisory committees, all of those things that Victoria talked about with the redesigning school counseling process. So in reality, this Gold Star designation, the award, it's just the beginning for the Fayette County School Corporation Counseling Department. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bethany, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the different school counselor activities.
So like Ashley said, we're not done. We got Gold Star, that's awesome. Super exciting. But we're not done. So one of the things that we got to look at when we started the RSC process was what activities are counselors and social workers supposed to be doing, and how does that compare to what we're doing? Good news, at least for elementary, is we feel like we're pretty well managing our ratio. ASCA says that we should be spending 80% of our time doing those top 4 things, and 20% of our time could be devoted to some non-program activities like lunch duties, picking up bus duties, things like that, where we're still working with kids, but we're not directly impacting them as far as counselors. But we were able to track our time and see how we're spending our time, and we're going to continue to do that. So we're keeping time logs and figuring out where we need to continue to move some things and shift some things. But I'm also going to talk to you about what I get to do as an elementary counselor, which is a lot of the things that are in that top 4. I'm not going to talk about everything on the slide because I would be here forever. And I can talk for a really long time about it because I just love it. But I do want to highlight classroom counseling lessons because for me, that is where Ashley and I differ in our job. As a school counselor, I have training in delivering counseling to students in a therapy type situation, but I also get to do some of that teaching role as well. And that's, like I said, that's where Ashley and I differ. So I get to deliver monthly lessons to K through 4, covering our richer principles. We also get to do all kinds of really cool stuff with career exploration. Right now we're going over state bullying law, and we're talking about how to be good friends to each other, which seems really obvious, but it's something that is hard for our kids sometimes. And then this year we're actually doing twice monthly lessons with our 5th graders. We're starting to incorporate life skills more because we see a need. We see that our 6th graders tend to know stuff that we're trying to teach them about a little ahead of time. So we're going to try to hit some things with them in terms of life skills, in terms of how to be assertive and avoid peer pressure situations and things like that. And then 6th grade's going to continue with their life skills and college and career readiness. So that's what I want to highlight. I'm going to let Ashley talk some more about a couple of other differences that we have with elementary.
Okay, so as far as, I know in the elementary schools, even with teachers, students, they often wonder, well, what's the difference between a counselor and a social worker? Because our roles do overlap, and if you look at the different slides, you're probably seeing a lot of these things look the same because we do both support the students one-on-one in groups and that type of thing. But one of the differences I'd like to highlight for social workers, a lot of what we focus on is that attendance support. So that could be making that phone call to see where the student's at, completing home visits, completing attendance letters. We also apply for grants within the community so that we can complete or do attendance challenges with our schools. So for instance, right now at my 2 buildings, we're doing a challenge that any class who gets 10 days of perfect attendance, so that's no absences or tardies, in the month of September gets a s'mores party. Just things like that to encourage the kids and reward them for being at school and on time. So that's one difference is the attendance support. And another difference, the counselors provide family support, but the social workers, our background in education is more to look at all the different systems that our client is involved in. So our client. The student is involved, the community, the family, the school. So we're looking at all the different systems and how to have all the systems connect and work together. So that's just one other difference as far as social workers go. So now I'm going to turn it over to middle school so that they can tell you about what they do.
Okay, so at the middle school, it's an adventure every day.
Those of you who work with middle schoolers know that.
Yeah, it's really 2 difficult years because they're just changing and growing emotionally and physically, and they're trying to find themselves. So in the middle school setting, we do classroom lessons, we do new student enrollment, we help with early college, high school. We are team lead sponsors, so we have a bystander leadership group that we train the kids how to intervene when they see bullying. We also do 21st Century Scholars. We don't have a social worker, so we do home visits. We have Spartan Pride activities that we coordinate. New mats, a lot of transition because we're trying to get the 6th graders ready to come to middle school, but then we're also sending our kids to high school. So for at one point in time, you're kind of a counselor for 3 different grades.
Because if you don't know, we follow our kids for 2
Yes,
years. So
yeah.
we start with them in 7th grade and follow them to 8th grade. So the 8th grade counselor is then getting their kids ready to go to high school while they're also getting ready for their new group of 6th graders to come to 7th grade.
Yeah.
So.
So since we're in the middle, we have to be able to work with everybody. College visits, I'm planning that now for my 8th graders. And we also coordinate our corporation student services meetings. And then this year, we're very fortunate to have Meridian Services because like we talked about with the grant, we were trying to figure out what things we needed. And since we didn't have a social worker and we kind of wanted some mental health services, we were able to get Meridian Service to come in. And we have 2 behavioral clinicians that are there half-time each. And so that's been really
So they've been able to help with a lot of the attendance issues and we're hoping more home visits and items like that. And they're actually signing up with students to be their clients also through Meridian. So they're getting home services that way also.
Right.
So.
And to work with some of those more frequent flyer students, yeah. And then we do provide families with outside resources as well. And then just the different events that we all kind of work together to have too. Like we're all going to do a college go week, we're all going to do Red Ribbon Week. At the middle school, we're going to do Random Acts of Kindness, Reality Store, and a Mix It Up Day where they get to mix it up at lunch and we tell them where to sit and they get to sit with people they don't usually sit with and try to get to know people better, and they love it.
They do. But if you, the part they love is if you come, you'll see our ceiling tiles.
Yes,
They love
yes,
doing that
yes,
part though.
yeah.
And they like to look at it the next couple years as they
Right,
come through and see who's
Yeah, we make them work together with a group of people they wouldn't otherwise talk to and get to know, and so they have to work together. So, all right, so we're going to turn over to the high school. Yeah.
Well, very similar to the elementary and middle school levels, we also focus on the academic, career, and social emotional development of our students. We're often the last bridge before students go out into the world, whatever their next step is, so we're there to help with individual counseling for planning for the future. Another big part of our job duties include testing. We coordinate and proctor the ISTEP, ECA testing, Accuplacer, both for Ivy Tech and the state mandated Accuplacer, SAT and ACT. We offer every single administration that's possible on Saturdays. We're giving the PSAT on October 11th to all interested juniors and sophomores. We also work with the Armed Services to do the ASVAB testing here at our schools. WIDA screening for students whose English is not their first language. And we're also very prominent members of our RTI team.
We also help our students with early college, high school to make sure that they are taking the dual credit classes they need to complete the pathway. If they complete a pathway, earn the 30 credits, that's a lot of money they can save going into college. And then, we also, through the ECHS program, there's lots of support because lots of kids, they don't know about college. I just had a young lady in my office today saying how nervous she was and asking me all kinds of questions, and simple as, I don't know if I want to live in a dorm, or I'm not sure what my major is. So we really work on that. We help our 21st Century Scholars. They have activities that they must do every year they're in high school. They must earn a Core 40 diploma or higher, so either the Core 40 or one of the honors diploma, and they have to graduate with a 2.5 GPA. And I cannot round it when I turn those in. So a kid that has a 2.49, they won't get their scholarship. We do community outreach. We try to help kids as much as we can, especially with our food pantry. We have scholarships, all the local scholarships, the Lilly Scholarship that come out. Of course, college applications and college expiration. A lot of these students, they've been, we do college stuff with them while they're in elementary, while they're in middle school. But then when it gets to in high school, then they get to their senior year and now they actually have to pick one. And sometimes, they've been dreaming, oh, I'm going to go to this school. And I'll say, well, what's your major? And they'll tell me, and then I'll say, well, are you sure that your school has that major? Because not every school has every major. Or some of them don't know. My favorite is when they say, I want to design video games. I'm like, well, that's very good, but there's not a major in that. So let's figure out what that is. And then definitely scheduling. We spend a lot of time with students scheduling their classes to making sure they're getting in the right place, because those credits are so important. We don't want them to get behind. So, if they fail a class first semester and we offer it again, we get them in our office and say, you need to repeat this course and you need to do it now, not later. We don't want to see juniors with 16 credits. And then the next thing is just collaboration. We talked with all the counselors, the social workers, Mrs. Phillips, who's our freshman success coach. She is definitely a huge help for us because she can focus and really get to know those 9th graders that are at risk, which, we each have a section of the alphabet, so we each have between 300 and 400 students. So it's nice that she can work with us to be able to meet those kids, because that relationship that they establish in 9th grade is so important to get them to go on to the next grade level.
And I'm going to talk a little bit more about our freshman success coach, Julie Phillips. She was unable to be here tonight, but basically what she does, it's the title of her job. She helps the freshmen be successful. The target population that she works with is the at-risk students, and the middle school really helps in identifying those students, and then sometimes we pick up a few more throughout the year. And what that looks like is she meets with them and talks about academics. She talks about what kind of needs they need, whether it be social, emotional. And another huge part that, one of the most important parts that she does, and it's for everybody, it's not just freshmen, is the food pantry and the corner store that we have here at CHS. So like I said, it seems pretty simple, and I'm not going to read through everything, but she's so important to our school, and she just does a great job. So with everything that you've heard tonight, what questions do you have for the school counselors? Yes.
What portion of school corporations provide this focus for K-8 students?
The percentage of schools in the state that provide elementary all the way through high school, I don't know those facts. I know you have to have a high school counselors, and they highly suggest middle school. Elementary, unfortunately, sometimes gets swept under because of the costs. I know that there are some that have started bringing in outside counselors, and or just only having the social worker. So we are very fortunate to have as many elementary counselors as we have.
Well, I would guess that our students are fortunate.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
If you get the Lilly grant, and we're all praying to all known gods and goddesses that you do, what would be some of the impact on some of the programs if we do get it? Because I've been on those committees, and we're a very needy county, and if they base it on need, I think we've got a really good shot at. What are some of the long-term things you'd like to see coming out of getting that Lilly grant? What would you like to? If you got the money, ladies, what would you like to do with it?
Well, we put several items into the grant. One thing is a comprehensive career college application system that it would be very beneficial to the high school, and that the middle school would also be using, with both training and following the kids' interests and where they've applied for college or for scholarships and all that. We put in for quite a bit of training. I don't know how many of you have read Ruby Payne's book. We put in there that we'd like to be trained. She has a training program for communities who are high in poverty, which is of course us. What else did we put in there? Growth mindset. Yeah, we would like to pursue some growth mindset, which is thinking about the way we think and kids knowing that it's not so much that I'm smart, it's that I worked hard for it. And it's been proven that students who have that mindset as opposed to the other actually do better and are more successful.
We also wrote in a testing component that would kind of alleviate some of the stress and time that takes us away from meeting with individual students. So there would be a position created that would help with testing so that we could do the traditional roles of school counseling.
Because unfortunately, about twice a year, we lose 2 to 3 weeks when we are so caught up in ISTEP. The kids aren't getting the services they need. It's a shame, and we hate that, but it takes so much to do ISTEP.
I know elementary was really enthusiastic about adding in some mindfulness curriculum. One of the things we found in our surveys at the elementary level is that our kids are really stressed, like really stressed, and we want to find some ways to alleviate that in the classroom since we can't be everywhere at once. So we asked for some mindfulness things that we can incorporate throughout.
Ladies, what are you looking for on the home visits or any particular goals, and do you go in pairs on home
Well,
visits?
at the middle school, we usually go with the principal. We never go by ourselves. And since we don't have a social worker, we're the ones that would go. But we're going because A, they're not coming to school. We don't know where they are, why they're not coming. Sometimes there's some really important information you need to relay to the parent, and you can't get a hold of them because that phone number doesn't work anymore, or, I mean, for whatever reason. So it's like urgent, they really need to know. Or the other day I went to one because we needed to set up a 504 meeting, and we couldn't get a hold of the parents, so we went to them. Yeah. So just things like that, just different things.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you for listening to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
guys.
coming and sharing everything. And congratulations and good luck. Okay. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. May I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any patron comments tonight on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the regular business meeting of 8/8/17, the executive meeting of 8/22/17, and the board work session of 8/22/17. Includes the personnel reports with retirements, resignations, leaves of absences, the approval of the August 2017 claims 47292 through 47578, and then a number of donations, an acceptance of a grant of $3,000 from the National FFA Organization for CHS FFA chapter, an acceptance of a grant of $1,076 for a reading garden greenhouse for Frazee Elementary from the Fayette County Foundation, acceptance of a $500 grant from the United Way for Eastview Elementary, and a donation of $3,773 from New Heights Christian Church for all elementary and middle school needs, which is quite a chunk. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. We are now moving into the public hearing on additional appropriation. And that is... Sure. Even though there's no name to the side.
Well, you'll notice the order is a little out
Yeah.
of whack, but the reason we're having the public hearing on the additional appropriation is it is a required component to appropriate these funds before they can be spent when you issue general obligation bonds. It was advertised in the newspaper that we would be holding a hearing on this additional appropriation. It does not require Department of Local Government Finance approval, although I do have to provide them the documentation that we did hold the hearing, and later, hopefully, that you will approve appropriating this additional appropriation when we get to the action items. So I think I'll entertain questions from the board or from the public if there are any. If not, we'll be able to act on this later in the agenda.
Okay. So, addressing the board, are there any comments that you wish to make on the additional appropriations? Okay, any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the action items and we'll address that if there's more at that time. Okay. We'll start with the first action item, the personnel report, recommendations for employment. Mr. Serkwa.
Thank you, Mrs. Jacobs. First of all, classified staff recommendations for employment. Emily Bell, educational assistant at Connersville High School. And I put a little asterisk there because when we moved Emily into that position, all of a sudden there was a need for her to be able to help us as a receptionist to the high school. So we're kind of working with that situation right now. Her position officially may change at some point, but we hired her on as an educational assistant, but she does a great job as a receptionist at the high school. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Clara Daniels, Title I education assistant at Maplewood. Maria Douglas, health assistant at Connersville High School. Devin Todd Lee, mail route driver. Nicole Morris, Title I aide at Frazee. Then we have extracurricular. We had a resignation, which you've seen earlier, and Jeff Cooley so graciously was willing to help us out. So we recommend Jeff Cooley as the head girls soccer coach at Connersville High School. And then we had some salary adjustments that we made. I think you were all part of the market adjustment that went on over the last maybe year or year and a half. And as we looked at a couple positions, we seen there was a need to make some changes there to get them in line with other similar positions around the state. So we recommend those positions.
All right, thanks, Mike. I'd like to entertain a motion for the personnel report.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion?
Mike, how many positions do we still have open? I see them I see several posted because I'm in the middle school.
Well, we have director of maintenance, which we're working on. And then we have two positions, one educational assistant / ISS at the high school, and similar position at the middle school.
Okay, you're entertaining people to apply for those online?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the board policy 3.25.1, second reading. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs Board. This is the second reading of a new policy. It is directly tied to the Teacher Appreciation Grant state funding. We talked about it at our meeting last month, and this policy would be number 3.25.1 that fits in with teacher compensation. And this provides guidance to us when we receive the $30 per ADM per student to provide that funding this winter to all of our effective and highly effective teachers. And it does provide a couple requirements with that. Just to remind you, the first is that the monies from this grant, 25% more must be paid to highly effective than to effective. And we've discussed how we will handle some pieces with that later out of general fund monies. And then we must distribute those stipends within 20 business days once received by the Department of Education. So that policy, we need to have that in place prior to September 15th and submit that to the state. So this is the second reading of that. So if we have any questions on that now, we can entertain those for a vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion for the board policy to be approved.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. A second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ann. Any discussion?
This was what we had talked about, and this is pretty perfunctory stuff.
Right. We just got to have a policy to guide
Yeah.
how they did it.
On how we distribute
How
the
we
funds
distribute
from the state.
From the state.
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we will move on to the approval of additional appropriation resolution. Ms. Kellum Tollett.
I'm not sure I can add much more. Again, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, but it's required
this is
before we can spend the money
Right,
from the
and
bond
we've
proceeds.
heard from Umball, and we've heard from you on this.
Yeah, you're going to hear
Yes.
from
Well,
again in a moment.
yes,
But yes, because there are several other bond issue-related items on the agenda.
Okay, okay. So I'd like to seek a motion for the approval of the additional appropriation resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. A second?
I'll make that.
Thanks, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to the approval of the final bond resolution. Ms. Kellum Tollett.
Thank you, Mrs. Jacobs. At this time, I'll turn it over to Brock and Caleb again from Umball to make a presentation, and then we'll move to the action items. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob, members of the board, it's great to be back. Good to see everyone again. We were here last time on August 8th, so this is a follow-up presentation from that meeting. So a lot of the information you'll see tonight is consistent to that meeting presentation. And we'll give you updates on a couple of bonds that we've seen sold here recently with a similar size and repayment schedule, but all trending positive, of course. Again, my name's Brock Bauscher. With me is Kayla Moffitt from Umball & Associates. We are a financial advisor, so again, we do not purchase or underwrite bonds. We are serve strictly as a fiduciary responsibility, which means we are assisting the school corporation to pay as little interest as possible on debt structuring. So that's our role and responsibility. So again, you've seen this information before, but this slide in front of you tonight, this is your data for your outstanding debt as of today. Again, you are paying back 4 bonds through your debt service fund, which I know you just went through or are going through the budget process now. One thing I do want to highlight on this slide is that we did not include the 2013 refunded pension bonds because those are paid from a separate fund. So this is just your debt that is paid for through the debt service fund and levied through the debt service fund. One thing you'll notice on this slide is that in 2018, you see that you decrease in your payments from approximately $1.8 to $1.58 million, which is why we're here tonight, because there's an opportunity to issue debt and not increase the overall annual payment. So again, we're seizing this opportunity now heading into 2018. This slide represents the exact same information, just shared graphically. For anything like me, you'd like to see it visually, but this information communicates the exact same thing. You see that downward slope beginning in 2018 when compared to the far left in 2017. Next slide. Running through it rather quickly, so please slow me down if you want me to expand upon anything. But this chart or this slide represents the Indiana State statutory general obligation limit for Fayette County schools as of today. And what this means, bottom line to this school corporation, is that Fayette County schools could issue $4.3 million in general obligation capacity. Now, there's different legal steps if you were to go over $2 million as of now. So what we're not suggesting is issuing $4.3 million, rather $2 million, which gives you some general obligation capacity that if anything unforeseen happens from this point going forward, general obligation bonds are always a nice way to issue debt. Again, if nothing is can be prepared for an emergency case. So again, recommending a $2 million GO bond, but just keep in the back of your mind, you have capacity for up to $4.3 million. So looking at what we're seeing on current interest rates, we are getting in and out of the market for what we're suggesting for this evening. It would be a $2 million GO bond, and it would be a 4-year, 3-month repayment. The state of Indiana allows, as you are probably all aware, up to a 20-year bond repayment. So this is well below what the state of Indiana allows. So this, again, getting in and out of the market. Based upon today's interest rates, we're assuming that you'll pay back as much as $151,000 in interest over this 4-year and 3-month. Your max annual payment is $775,000, but what you'll see in a couple of slides, that isn't more, that's just what you would be paying more in comparison to your existing outstanding debt. So that means you're not increasing it more by $775,000, but rather we're increasing your payments compared to your outstanding debt. Again, we'll hit upon that in just a moment. One thing I want to make a quick note of here with how we built this assumed repayment schedule, we're assuming a net interest cost of about 2.6%. Caleb, on a bond he worked with here just recently for a county library, a $2 million GO bond with a 7-year repayment resulted in about a 1.76% net interest cost. So we're hoping, again, with the plan that the net interest cost will actually come in below what we're assuming. So again, we're trending positively, but we won't know until we make the sale on October 10th. You heard me mention the $775,000 increased payment from the current outstanding debt. If you look at the date of 1/15/22 and move right, you can see that budget year total. So that's how we came up with that $775,000 max payment. But going to the next slide, you will see that does not increase compared to your 2017 budget. So we're keeping everything level compared to 2017. So again, a lot of information you heard similar to August 8th. Any questions, thoughts, suggestions?
Do you think that the beginning rate's going to be 2%?
I'm sorry?
The beginning rate on those bonds will be 2%?
That's what we looked at through our pricing team when we started putting together these assumed repayment schedules.
And then I noticed that trends up through January 15th, 2022.
Yeah, typically investors, the longer you have their money, the more money they want in return. So typically you'll pay more interest the longer their money's tied up. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, good catch. Good question. So we'll make a concerted effort to market these bonds to, again, draw as much interest, no pun intended, in the competitive sale as possible.
So these aren't fixed in stone, they're
Nope.
just
Nope.
a projection of...
These are just a projection based upon current market values, but general obligation bonds are required by the SEC to be in the state of Indiana to be competitively bid. So we'll ask local banks to participate. So if you know of local banks who may be interested, we'll want to know who they are, and we'll send out all the bid information to them and send it out to all underwriters leading up to it, and hopefully get as many bids as we can to pay as low a net interest cost as we can.
So we're through, so far as how far we've come, we're through the underwriting process now?
Nope, it'll be competitively bid, so underwriters will place a bid on October 10th based upon net interest cost.
Okay, you referred to that earlier.
Yep, competitively bid, not negotiated. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Is your experience, when you were citing his experience, were you saying that sometimes it comes under so that, okay.
Yep, absolutely. So again, we'll market these as much as possible because competition is always a good thing in GO bonds, so banks will have to compete for the business. And again, if there's local banks here that you think may be interested in bidding, we'd like to know them as well. So the timeline from here, we'll continue to work with Mr. Collins and Ms. Kelly Pollock. And these bonds will be rated through S&P, and the bid date or the sell date is on October 10th, and we will close on Halloween. So So we'll report back on how the bids come through after October 10th.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion on the approval of the final bid bond resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Warren. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you, Andy. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to move on to the approval of the resolution approving amended and restated post-issuance compliance procedures.
It's easy for you
Ms.
to say.
Keller-Jacobs.
Basically, the SEC requires that we report information on EMMA, which is the Electronic Municipal Market Access System related to our bonds. What you are approving in this item are the items that we are required to comply with, and then we sign that we agree to comply with those requirements and report that information annually, or when we issue a new bond, we have 30 days to get that posted, I think it is, or something like, what is it, 60? 10? Oh, well, I got to work quicker then. But they're all identified. There's like this major checklist of things that we have to do periodically for the bond issues, and this action item says we're going to comply with those.
Okay, sounds great.
10 days.
I'd like to.
In 10 days.
Oh, I'll move.
Thank you, Ann, so I didn't have to repeat all that. Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we'll move on to the permission to advertise the notice of intent to sell bonds.
Yeah, as a courtesy, we have always asked the board to approve any publications that we're going to make in the legal ads. We are required to advertise the notice of intent to sell bonds, so I'm asking for your permission to send that to the News Examiner. It's 4 or 5 pages long that will appear in the legal ads, saying, we're going to sell these bonds. All interested parties need to, submit their bid on October 10th. That's when they'll be opened in public. So.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion for permission to advertise the notice to sell. Thank you, Ann. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we will move on to something that I don't think has to do with bonds, the resolution for guaranteed energy savings contract, Ms. Keller.
Indirectly.
Indirectly.
If you recall, in July, you authorized us to request for qualifications for guaranteed energy savings contract providers. We received one set of qualifications from Performance Services. At that time, I indicated they were a major player with Indiana schools. Several schools use them to help with projects to improve their facilities as well as reduce their energy costs. One of the projects that we wish to do with the middle school is to replace those chillers that I keep talking about being kind of in a hole there. So this allows us to proceed with Performance Services as our guaranteed energy savings contract provider. There is no money associated with this. Their fee gets built in when they prepare the design build and they get the bids from all of the vendors for the project. They then add their fee into that, at which time you would then approve a contract with them for that chiller work. But this is the first project that we wish to undertake with the bond proceeds, so this is a step in that process.
So do they function as a general contractor then?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they get all the players together, and they get all of the bids, and it's one price to us, and if there are errors they're on the hook for those errors. Now, if we add to the scope of the project, then that could be a change order to us. But it's a bundled package for the whole design through the build of the project. We can specify product, though, if there are certain types of chillers that we do not like to use because we've had bad experience, we can specify ABC chillers or equivalent in that package, but the price is bundled.
So this contract is issued on a per-project basis?
It is.
Okay.
With not individual vendors, but bundled as one with performance services, and then they pay basically the subs on the job.
Okay, got it.
They do we tell them what we want done, and they put a plan together.
They
or
take the bids.
They take the bids, they put the plan together, and they say, here's what we have for you, and then it's up to us to approve or not.
Yeah, if you will, it's from soup to nuts on the project. They do the whole design, the install, coordinate with the vendors, get the punch list done, they turnkey.
You hire somebody to build your house and say, build it, this is what I want, the same philosophy, I guess.
Where was that person 30 years ago?
Where was that person when we got the chillers installed in the first place?
Yeah.
That's why we're giving performance services.
That's
It's a good
the point I was trying to make.
opportunity. We're gonna need more work done, and that's.
I'm sure Mrs. Denham would like to have not gone through all the punch lists that you went through when that renovation was going on, because it was extensive.
Okay, thank you, Janie. I would like to entertain a motion for the resolution for guaranteed energy savings contract.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Andy. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we will move on to the approval of the APC speech textbook. Ms. Corsaro.
Thank you, President Jacobs. And I can confidently say I believe this does not have to do with fonts. In your packet, you'll find a memo where we're asking you for approval of the APC speech textbook. This is for a dual credit class, and unfortunately, we were not notified of this until here recently, so we're asking for your approval to purchase and immediately use this digital book for APC speech.
What are they using now? I mean, have they been using?
What was the question?
What are you currently using, or are you using it now?
No, we're not using it, well, we are using it now, but we will have full access until we're allowed.
It's a digital, so.
Oh, right. So-
We've been using the documents they've supplied for us over
Yeah.
the years, and as you guys found out when you went to college, sometimes a certain professor has a certain book that they wrote that they want their classes to use, or when you thought you were going to get to use your brother and sister's 3rd edition, the professor says, no, you need the 6th edition, and so you had to go get a different book. We have no control over that. When IU or Ivy Tech says, here's the book we want you to use, we may find out at the beginning of the year, we may find out at the beginning of the 2nd semester, so we have no choice other than to come to you and get approval to purchase that. And we'll have to float a bond to buy that book.
Boy, thank you. He never lets me down.
Right. Very good. Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the APC speech textbook. Thank you, Chris. A second. Thank you, Lori. Any further discussion?
Quick question. It does say that protected funds can pay for the books and students will be assessed correct fees. Then at the bottom it says students will be charged $45 for the material. How much, is that it, $45 total? Or is it the school's chipping in a certain amount of money and then you gotta add 45? Does that make sense?
Well, did you hear the question, Randy?
I didn't hear
The
that.
$45 cost for that, the question Andy had was, that's the portion that the student will be responsible for that digital license fee for that book for the year.
That's the whole price.
Oh, okay.
It's dual credit, they're getting part.
And that's the thing with dual credit is that's really all, these kids are getting that
Oh, yeah.
dual credit for $45, so yeah.
Instead of $450, that's a lot of those books cost.
Mr. Judd, do we have a number of students in that class, or can you tell me the number?
There are, I think there are least 55 to 65 kids.
That's good.
No, that's,
Yeah.
I was curious.
Everybody requires the speech
Speech,
class.
yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're going into. When you go to college or when you're going through an Ivy Tech associate degree program, they have that speech component.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to, wait, we just did that. Okay, so now we've had discussion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, now we move on to the discussion item of the public hearing on the 2018 budget, 2018-20 to 2029 bus replacement plan, the 2018 to 2020 capital projects plan. Ms. Kellum-Tollett.
Yeah, you want the 3-page version?
Sure.
Or do you just want some high points? I mean, a lot of it is repetitive from our budget workshop. That's where we do our in-depth discussion and work. Some of the key points I'd like to point out are the fact that on the general fund, starting with the general fund, the valuation of farm ground continues to decline. In 2015, it was $2,050 per acre. Last year, it was $1,960 per acre. This year, it's declining to $1,850 per acre. Since we are a large farming community, we do see an impact of that. We're not a growing within the city for industry, so I'm anticipating that we will experience another decline in our assessed valuation. So when we do that, on those funds that are levy driven, so for debt service, we have to have a certain amount of money to pay our debt and our pension debt. When the assessed valuation goes down, the rate goes up. So, the general fund no longer has a property tax component and has not had for several years. The majority of our funding comes on a per-student basis, whether that's tuition support, whether that is special education, or career and technical programs. We do receive a few smaller revenues in the general fund, reimbursement for part of our summer school expenses. Adult basic education is a component of the general fund revenues, and a little dab of interest. But we all know interest rates are not what they once were. We receive, the tuition support in 2016 was $4,967 a student. Last year it moved to $5,088 a student. It again is going up this year to $5,273 per student. I want to point out one of the major changes in the school funding formula this year is there will be one funding count day, which is this Friday. That is huge for us. A few years ago, they went to 2 dates, the one in September and the first day of February. That first day of February, we always experienced a decline in students. So by eliminating that count day, our funding for 2018 will be based on that September count. Now, having said that, we still declined students. In the numbers I got today, we were down 28 students below what I had estimated our decline to even be. So I'm hoping we can find a few more students by Friday, but right now, it looks like our revenues are probably overestimated by about $176,000 in the general fund. The next fund that we have is the debt service fund. We currently have 3 bond issues outstanding. As noted, one of them, the QZAB, retires next year. So the debt service fund does include an estimate for the new bond issue, basically one sliding off, one sliding on. In addition to these bond issues, we have the technology loan, which we received in 2013. The annual amount on that is about $31,500, and it pays off in 2019. It also includes the unfunded textbooks from the state for the free and reduced lunch student. They pay us on a per-student basis. They allow us to submit 20% of the textbook cost. So if the combined books cost $400 for a student, we can turn in 20% of that, or $80. The state no longer looks at what we turn in. They say, okay, all of the schools added together, there are 1 million students, and our appropriation is X. We divide our appropriation by the 1 million students, and we push money back based on the student count. So then the next year, following that payment from the state, we're allowed to add that on to our debt service levy. So schools basically get part of their money from the paid parents 1 year, and part of the money from the state 1 year, and then they have to wait a whole additional year to get the amount that the state did not pay for back into their textbook fund. We have the pension debt fund. We did refinance that in 2013. It reduced our interest payments by $87,000 over the remaining life of those bonds. Annually, we spend about just under $200,000 for that repayment. It does require a levy neutrality piece, meaning that I will have to make cuts when we meet with the Department of Local Government Finance on our budget to remove that $200,000 either from transportation, bus replacement, or capital projects. The capital projects, we've talked about that probably most of all. You have copies of the plans that were provided in your notebook. Generally, we have about $2.5 million a year in capital projects. $847,000 of that is for utility costs. If we did not levy it for utility costs, we could not spend it somewhere else. You only get it if you levy it for utility or property insurance. We choose to use property insurance. Athletics is capped at 3% of the levy, so that's pretty much about $150,000 consistently from year to year. You cannot increase that. One of the key things I want to point out about capital projects is the impact based on the circuit breaker. Our estimated impact for 2017 is over $600,000. So that's money we levy that we're never going to get in the bank because it's above what the cap is for the individual homes or the ag property or the rentals or industry. The state requires us to have a 3-year plan, which was included in your documents. When the Finance Committee meets with the directors and principals to go over it, we do ask for 5 years out, just so we can get some things on the radar. The Transportation Fund is allowed a 4% increase annually. That's determined by the state depending on inflation factors, so it's revisited every year. The current amount is 4%. Last year, I believe it was 3.8, and previously it had been running about 2.6%. The circuit breaker estimated impact for transportation for this year is $547,000. Bus replacement, that took a change a few years ago. Basically, the state says that we replace 1/12 of our buses every year, whether you do or not. So you have to levy for that. You might only have 2 buses to replace that year, but if you don't go to the maximum levy, you're not going to have the cash on hand to replace buses in the year when you have 10 to replace. So they have tighter hands. Additionally, it allows for the 4% increase in the budget amount. So we are at the max. This happens to be coincidentally a year where the levy basically matches the amount that we anticipate needing for buses. But that's the first year it's happened since they've made the change that they're so close together. The circuit breaker impact for bus replacement is estimated at $67,000 for this year. The final fund is the rainy day fund. We budget the rainy day fund when we're doing the regular budget. If not, we would have to go through the additional appropriation process, which costs the corporation money by publishing that, and that would require board approval for the additional. Then we would have to go to the Department of Local Government Finance. So hopefully we have levied enough money in the rainy day fund, but if we would have an emergency, we do have extra capacity that we could go through the additional appropriation process. Built into the rainy day fund are salaries and fringe benefits, as well as bridge payments, should we need those funds. There are technology salaries and capital outlay for technology, should we need that resource, because there is not enough capacity in CPF. And in addition to that, there's about $1 million for capital projects and to help with the circuit breaker and to help with emergencies in the event we would have any. You've heard me talk about the circuit breaker or emphasize it several times this evening. Our impact in total is $1,234,000 that we will levy and never collect. That is up from $1,073,000 in 2016. It's 1% cap on residential property, 2% on rentals and agriculture property, and 3% on other real property industry. At the October meeting, again, I will probably monopolize the agenda. There will be several items for you to approve. You'll approve the resolution for tax rates and appropriations, adopt the capital projects plan, adopt the bus replacement plan, approve a levy neutrality resolution, and then a resolution that allows me to make the changes necessary with the Department of Local Government Finance to make sure we're within the maximums allowed. So there you are. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Well, as you speed through that, I think it's important for the public to know that we have gone through this in a more thorough manner than just this quick summary. So if they don't notice us saying, what? We have heard a lot of this before.
Yeah, we did a lot of this work at the budget workshop, which the public was invited to also in August.
And there was an article in today's News Examiner, if you haven't read that, the impact of the tax cap, so I encourage you to take a look at that. It's impacting all the local government agencies.
Not just
Significant impact.
And it kind of puts everybody in the same boat.
It does.
And that's a bad boat to be in, but it's kind of comforting to know that
we're all misery loves company.
Misery loves company, because it's not just the school corporation, it's everybody. And
that's why it's important for me to try and keep our debt consistent, if at all possible. I mean, if we have an emergency, I'm going to recommend we take care of our own. But right now, with this debt, as you saw, the orange bar is we make smaller payments, and then as other debt rolls off, we increase that to keep our debt service levy consistent. If we raise ours, that hurts others in making the circuit breaker impact greater to ourselves as well as the other taxing units. So.
Well, thank you, Janie, for that summary. Are there any public comments on the proposed budget? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to summer school reports. Ms. Corsaro and the Judds, who I know are here.
Okay, thank you, President Jacobson, the board. First of all, just want to briefly talk about Jumpstart. We were fortunate enough to receive the grant from the foundation again, and we were able to offer the Jumpstart program for our kindergartners, and it continues to be a success. We had this from July 17th through the 28th. We had 159 kindergartners who were signed up to attend a 2-week period. I think both parents, teachers, and administrators will agree that these extra 2 weeks are really paying off in terms of our students being ready for that first day of school. They're coming ready to learn that first day versus the first 2 weeks being about procedures, expectations. They're ready to go. We had one school in which we were fortunate to have one class all attend. And then we received some late registrations, and just walking into the 2 different classrooms, you could really tell the classroom where all the Jump Start students had attended for 2 weeks versus the classroom where the kids, they were starting the first day. So I think that that's a great testimony to the great things that this grant allows us to do for our kindergartners and the jump start it's giving them on their education. So again, want to shout out to the Fayette County Foundation and appreciate their continued support of this program.
I shared that with Anna Dung, and I met with her yesterday and gave that example of that school, and the principal was saying, oh, you have to see these 2 kindergarten classes just to see the difference
It is.
between the 2. It was amazing.
How many?
Yeah, how many total kindergartners
Yeah.
do we have as opposed to
Yeah.
how many took the jump start?
We have 222 kindergartners.
So, yeah, so there's,
70.
150
each year we seem to get closer and closer to that number. I think parents are starting to see the benefits of it. You know, the first year it takes time for people to understand what it's about. And I think the teachers, knowing that they're going to have, a lot of the teachers that are participating are the teachers that they're going to be having for that school year. And so that also brings a lot of students out. But each year we seem to be getting closer and closer to the number. Our goal is always to get 100%. But for the kids who are attending, we're reaping great benefits for them, and it's exciting to see them.
That's great.
I'm going to now turn it over to Julie Judd. She was our elementary principal for summer school, and she's going to give you a few positives and things that happened at elementary summer school. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Good evening. It was a wonderful summer school experience, I think, for me and the students. Teachers were fabulous. I will tell you that we had summer school from June 5th through the 23rd, and we had first grade through 6th grade in our building. Summer school lasted from 8:30 to 12:30 every day, and we had breakfast and lunch that was served every day as well. Students for summer school were chosen based on their academic needs, and that was identified either, well, in conjunction with teacher recommendation, their reading level, scores on their NWEA test, ELA, and math. 3rd grade, they were included if they did not pass the iRead 3 during the regular school year. And grades 3 through 6, they had teacher recommendation reading level, and they had to score between the 40th and 55th percentile on their pivot, ELA, and math assessments. So the standards that were focused on were identified prior to summer school. It was the most critical standards, and I believe they had been our focus the year before. It served us well, so we stayed with those standards this summer. We did not have a standard assessment tool that we could use to pre-assess and post-assess students, so our teachers worked together with their teaching partners, and they created pre- and post-tests for every standard that they taught. So that was no small feat. That took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and they did a fabulous job. Our instructional day, we had 90 minutes for reading, 60 minutes for writing, and 60 minutes for math. And the exception to that would be 3rd grade. Mrs. Crosaro had suggested that we focus 3rd grade on the language arts. So they spent their time, their entire time, working on reading and writing and word work. We had 3 educational assistants. One was assigned specifically to 3rd grade, and she rotated between those teachers, and she basically double-dipped those kids that had not passed iRead 3. So the students were getting their regular instruction with their teacher. They were being pulled in small group to work with our educational assistant. And I think it worked really well. These kids are tested again on iRead 3. It's really not a full 3 weeks of education. It's really 2 weeks and maybe a couple of days, because we have to give it a little early in case we have kids who are absent, that we can make up those tests. So I was pleased. I know we would have loved to have had more, but we had 5 out of 20, which was an improvement over last year, and so that was about a 25% pass rate, which I was happy with that. I would have loved to have seen more myself, but I thought it was great. Teachers worked very, very hard. We had 13 teachers when we started summer school, and by the end of summer school we had 11. Because of our lack of student attendance, our class sizes went down, and so we lost a couple of teachers. But I have to tell you, everyone was wonderful about that, handled it very well. Teachers combining classrooms handled it very well. So it was a great experience. We had about 228 students from beginning to end, so with an average attendance rate of about 88%. So again, you would love for that to be better as well, but it was good. It was good. I personally, and I will tell you, I saw a lot of great things educationally in our classrooms. Flexible grouping based on student need. Small groups. There was all kinds of things going on with technology. The one thing that I saw that really just warmed my heart, and I think it speaks to what you are all about, and that is making connections with kids. Teachers asking students, about their weekend, if they knew something special was going on. And these were students they had not known before they came to summer school, but yet they had already made those connections with those kids, and they were asking personal questions about their weekend or their evening the night before because they knew something special was happening, and that meant a lot to those kids, right down to recognizing your students that having a lot of anxiety, being in a whole new school, riding a school bus they did not ride before, and dealing with that on a daily basis. We as a corporation are very fortunate to have the teachers we have in this corporation. I would say the highlight for me, working with all of the different kids in Fayette County, working with the different teachers as well that I don't normally get to work with and only see in passing. It was very rewarding. I'm very proud to say that I work with those teachers, and we're very fortunate. So, I don't think I have anything else to add, but if you have questions for me, I'll be glad to take them.
The kids that didn't pass the iRead at the end of the, and you can't fix everything in 2.5 weeks. That's is there any? And I don't understand that test particularly well, but is there anything that you could, for those children that didn't pass it this time, is there any indicators of improvement in the different areas?
We are seeing improvement. I think what we did this year really helped, and that is the double dipping and keeping a focus on those students that didn't pass. I think your idea of focusing on language arts for 3rd grade was a wonderful idea. I think it made a very big difference. And we do see improvement. I think those are things we need to pluck from what happened and continue. For sure.
And a lot of those students as well are special ed students. And sometimes we give them the opportunity to retake the test in the summer. However, as a case conference decision, we can give them the good clause exemption, which means that if they don't pass it the second time, that they can go on. But we like to give them, every opportunity to pass that test. But a lot of kids that didn't pass it the second time are students that are in our special ed population.
Well, and again, if you can see progress,
Sure.
that's really what you're looking for. And will those students who did not pass the iRead, are any of those students that were in summer school, was retention in 3rd grade an option, or basically were they told if you complete the summer school situation and you work hard, then you will go on to 4th grade with the rest of your class?
And like I said, most of those are special ed, and those are case conference decisions, but most of them get the exemption and they do go on.
And the state allows that.
Yeah.
Just because of the kids who are maybe mild or, have some pretty significant learning disabilities.
And I'm assuming the iRead is like the iStep is, if you have an IEP that says the comprehension section of the test has to be
extended time
or read to you, you cannot have it read aloud. No, okay.
No, not if it's the comprehension part.
No, comprehension part they have to do on their own. Okay.
but they do get extended time.
Okay.
I would add too that we have to look at attendance, and some of our third graders were not in attendance every day, and in fact, we had to make some phone calls to see that parents would bring them in to test. So getting 5 out of 20.
That's good.
It was quite a feat, it actually was. So I do think that we are doing some great things and definitely learned from it. We should continue doing what we did, I believe, this summer. But, yeah, it was a great experience all around. It really was.
And I wanted to, just not to prolong the meeting, but with those summer assessments, there's a really quick turnaround in getting the results, but we do not get useful data on the retakes to see what areas, whether it's vocabulary or the reading
That was
comprehension.
pretty
That's
much.
part of the fallacy with the state reporting as well. We don't get useful information to show the growth from
Well,
the state.
that's the nice part about NWEA.
Yeah.
You push the button in, and you've got the results, and teacher resources with that are wonderful.
I want to commend Julie too. That first day, I think it was rainy that first day. It was
I was so
chaotic.
grateful.
She was a veteran in there at it. She had a line of about 450 people, and she was just Miss Calm. You know, Steve Bear was out there with his umbrella running around, and I was out there running around. And she, I mean, it was just one. It was, you don't realize all the questions you're going to get on that first day.
Yes.
But I commend Julie. She did an excellent job.
Thank you,
in
I
that
enjoyed it
leadership
very
role.
much.
So
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to have Mr. Judd talk about CHS. In addition, we also offered our 8th graders that were our incoming freshmen an opportunity to gain some high school credit, so I'm going to let him take it from here.
Thank you. Good evening, President Jacobs and Board, and Mr. Collins and Cabinet. I will say behind every good woman is a hungry man. So I'm going to keep this short. We had one session of summer school this summer for the first time. We usually have 2 sessions, and we shortened it to 1 3-week session, 5 hours a day, 8 to 1. We serve breakfast and lunch. Our rule is students can miss 1 day of those 15 days and still be eligible for their credit. But I will tell you that we are flexible with that rule as well. For example, if we had a student who maybe is a cheerleader and had to miss a day for a cheerleading camp that's sponsored by the school, we would allow that to happen. If a student made it to the last week and maybe they went over their 1-day limit in the last week, we would allow them to stay after 1 o'clock and make up some time so that they could pass a class that they were excelling in and at least getting that credit. So we do make some exceptions. We offered English 9, 10, 11, and 12 in a combined class. We had 3 sections of PE. We had both semesters of geometry offered in summer school. We had government, which is a traditional summer school class. And we had the second semester of algebra, so the students who failed it right before summer school could go right back in it. And then we had an Algebra 2 section. As Mrs. Corsaro mentioned, we did allow, for the second year in a row, students who traditionally had to pass 8th grade summer school before they could come to the high school. We allowed them to go ahead and come to the high school and take high school summer school for credit. And that proves to be very successful. It's really, to me, it's a jump start for high school. You take these kids who might be at risk, they may be fearful, they may not have a lot of confidence, and you put them in a PE class and they find out, hey, I can do this. I'm not afraid. I know where I'm going at the high school. I know what the cafeteria is like, and it proves to be a pretty successful way to do it. So I appreciate the opportunity to allow those kids to come and earn credits before they start. We also allow students to sign up for online classes through the Indiana Online Academy, and that's proving to be very successful. Mr. Collins, a couple years ago when we started it, said we really need to, since it costs $250 to take those classes, we need to allow the students to have some skin in the game. So we do make them pay $50 for that class. And there's a deadline. They have to have so many hours of work in, so many assignments done by a certain time in the summer.
And if they're getting close, and Mr. Collins, you probably got emails from me, Mrs. Corsaro, your child was also in summer school. I send emails reminding the kids and their parents, hey, you've got $50 invested in this, and you haven't been working, so get on it. And immediately there's a spike. They get on it and they get where they're supposed to go. So here's some brief results. We had 191 students who earned 180 credits at the summer school at CHS. Those few who did fail were mostly students who did not complete the summer, or they missed more time than we allowed them to miss. CMS had 19 of their mandatory students that they said, you are taking CHS summer school and you have to pass to be able to go. We had 19 of those students receive credit. We had 32 CMS students who took summer school on their own, just signed up and took it. So we had 51 8th graders come in with credits. They're ahead of the game, and that's exciting. Online results, we had 86 students. They actually signed up for 97 classes, so some of them took more than one, but those 86 students earned 82 credits online. And so it's a lot of work. You have to get on and do the work. We had 12 students complete 10 credits in summer school SAE agriculture. That's supervised agricultural experience, and Gabe does a good job supervising those. And if you are a student who hasn't passed the ECA, we still have students who have to pass the old ECA to graduate. And you take summer school, you can take the ECA in summer. So we had 2 of the 4 students who took the English ECA pass it, and the 1 student who took the math did not pass it. So I think that's still pretty good. These are kids that have failed it several times by the time they took it this summer. We served 1,615 breakfasts and 2,183 lunches. You'll hear that from Chartwell's in their next report. So, summer band, we had 41 students participate. So that wraps it up for me. Like I said, I'm hungry. Do you have questions? If there are no questions, we'll go home.
Question.
Okay.
Mark's got a question.
You got nothing on me when it comes to hungry. You said we only had one session for the first time, I presume in 37 years that I know of. So what do we attribute that to?
Well, I think the online classes are offering another opportunity for them to take it. It saves, usually in the second session we don't run buses, and so it's a much smaller group, and we just didn't have enough students really sign up for that second session to offer full loads. We could have offered some PE and maybe 1 or 2 other classes.
Do you think it might be that it's a 5-hour class instead of a 2.5-hour class?
Yeah. It's hard to sit anywhere for 5 hours, but I will say our teachers mix it up. They take breaks. They do serve a lunch and a breakfast in that time.
I was one of those teachers, remember?
I know.
I do not like the 5-hour class. I don't like it. I don't think it gives kids time to digest the material. Critical thinking, I think, disappears. I just don't like the 5-hour summer school.
We're open to suggestions and change.
I'm with Mark, and I didn't ever teach the 5-hour summer school, but I taught 2 sessions of the 2.5-hour summer schools. And I think it also gave the kids an opportunity to digest. And as an adult, we don't like doing anything for 5 hours at a time, and we're asking kids. Also, on the middle school kids, did all of them take PE? Was that the one? Oh, okay, that was a good move. Because to sit them in an academic class probably is not going to make it, but to get a PE credit.
Builds that confidence and gets them started on the right foot.
Well, they've got a credit when they go in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, thank you,
Thank you,
Randy.
Randy.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, at this point in time, we will entertain any public comments. Persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. Seeing none, we will move on to report items. Superintendent's discussion group report. Principal or director's reports. Director of
Human Resources reports.
I'm hungry.
Director of Finance.
Just a couple of kudos. One to Jimmy Coucher for stepping up at the 11th hour with Mr. Green's resignation and acting as interim. We've had a really good partnership, and I appreciate his efforts. In addition to that, I'd like to give a shout out to Katrina. She's done a lot of work vetting transportation software programs. She's getting close to making a recommendation. Her follow-up right now is talking to school corporations that use that software as well as PowerSchool to making sure that they have a positive communication. So, good job to the building on the hill.
Yay. Okay. Assistant Superintendent's report.
Just briefly, in your package, you will see that we are currently revising the field trip request form and the fundraising request form. Just wanted you to be familiar and be in the know that we are updating them. Just for example, in the field trip, we're asking for pre and post activities just so we get a better idea of what the instructional trip is about. And then for fundraising, we are just trying to do some checks and balances to make sure that we are following the sales tax where the groups are not fundraising for over 30 calendar days. So again, we're just updating them. I don't know when the last time, I can't remember when the last time they were updated, but we're just making some minor changes to them.
The field trip thing, and maybe.
We've always included standards.
Yeah, you've always included standards with it, and having filled out a jillion of those, we always kind of had to put in pre and post activities.
Right.
Did you kind of take that out at a particular point, or is
No, it's still in there. It's just, they just have to list it. A lot of times they'll put C attached. And this is just a little bit cleaner form where it's asking for what are the performance objectives, and then how are you going to follow up once you return from the field trip. But standards have always been included.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I will be quite lengthy, so you guys are pretty comfortable here.
Good for you.
So first, want to remind you, we have Gleaners, our next Gleaners food distribution that we help sponsor will be at Roberts Park at the Pavilion on September 20th. So if anyone would like to come out and help between 4 and 6, that would be great. I know we do need some more folks. I twisted the arm of one of our athletic coaches, and he's bringing some of his boys out just because I'm not able to carry food out right now, and we need some help with some strong young ladies and men who can help carry for those who can't. So he committed folks right away to us, so I appreciate that, Mr. Brown. I did want to make you aware we are looking at finalists for the Director of Maintenance Facilities, and we had a really nice pool of applicants. I want to commend Jimmy Croucher too for stepping in that interim time, and we can't wait another month to get someone on board. So I will work through Leslie. We will need to get a short meeting set up to name that person. And I would like to propose we have a short executive session just prior to that to do sort of a meet and greet, and then also do a follow-up with my evaluation too in that executive session. So I'll work through our board president with that, but wanted to make you aware of that, and we'll try to find a time that works for everyone for, I would estimate, a 30-minute total time commitment probably. So that's forthcoming because we do need to get someone named once we vet that person and get everything taken care of. Want to commend Max Powell. If you saw the paper today, Max, 52-year bus driver. His father had a long history too, and Max is retiring for some health reasons, but I've known Max my whole life, literally, and I just want to commend him. There was a nice story in the paper if you didn't have a chance to check that out. We'd like to also make you aware of our fall Indiana School Board Association regional meeting. It's coming up on the 18th of October. And our spring meeting, I thought was great. We had a great time and had a good presenters. So if you can attend, it starts at 6. We'd love to go. We can carpool again. So let Cindy know that if you could here in the next couple of weeks. So we'd love to have you attend that. And then courtesy of the high school, we have yearbooks if you would like to pick up one of our 2017 Cohesans too. So feel free to pick one of those up. So that's it.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody want to bring anything up for the good of the cause tonight?
I'd just like to recognize New Heights Church
Really?
for a great donation for a great cause, but I'm sure they have so many people pulling on their budgetary requests, but I really want to recognize them for that.
I'd like to recognize the entire staff of the Fayette County School Corporation for dealing with Harmony and Power School not talking to one another very well. It's been a difficult time, and Terry and his staff have been working very, very hard, but it's been a very frustrating situation. As a teacher who was anal about class lists and getting things together, that just didn't happen for the first couple of weeks of school. So I'd really like to commend all of the staff of all of the schools. I'm very familiar with the middle school, but everybody has had some of the same issues, and they've really worked hard. And it's not been an easy transition at all when your computer programs don't like each other very well. But it's getting better.
Yes.
It's getting much better. And the feedback on the parent, the access is really pretty cool. They like that. It's really pretty easy to do. So.
Do you have something more?
Sure. I'd like to piggyback on Mark's comments. Our community supports us in so many ways. It's hard to sit here and mention and describe everything the community does for us. And it's beyond the scope of money, but if you want to mention money, I mean, this month, if you add it up, it's close to $8,500 that the community provided to the school corporation that we'll use, and it'll be a great benefit to our students. So I just want to thank our community for the support they give the corporation.
I just want to continue to wish our superintendent some healing thoughts. And, you know, this man is a workaholic. I'm not sure that he was actually out of the office very much. He was certainly staying in touch and doing emails from home. Before I even knew what happened, I asked him a question, and he sent me a long email. I would not have known that just the day before he'd been out of commission. And to the rest of the staff here at Central Office, I don't know that anybody would have known in the community that our head guy was kind of in a pickle. So, wonderful job to everybody. So,
Can we amend his contract to say no ladders?
I'm not sure.
Or power tools, right, Randy?
I appreciate Deflection.
I will tell you, I did receive some nice guidance here from one of our esteemed board members tonight on the ladder-free Christmas light hanger that I can order. And then I blamed Mr. Dungan at the Career Center, but I found out that my good friend Scott Sargent sent me a video, OSHA video on how to properly use ladders. So I did that, so.
We will be implementing the lockout, tagout program.
On ladders.
As well as the snow blowers.
Scott, you're going to get that for a while.
I don't bounce anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
But thanks.
All right. I'm on a motion for adjournment, as I always forget to ask.
So moved.
Thanks, Mark. A second. Thanks, Chris. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.